You're listening to Just a Dude podcast with your host, Nathan. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Let's roll. What's up, dudes and dudettes? Welcome back to Just a Dude podcast, where we hang out, shoot the breeze, and talk about life with some seriously cool people. I'm your host, Nathan, just a dude trying to figure it all out, one conversation at a time. Today, we've got a guy who's not just a dude, but a legend in his own right. He's a writer, a musician, a cancer-fighting warrior, and a dude who lives by the motto, punch today in the face. Stick around because this one's going to be a wild ride. All right, let's get into it. Please welcome my guest, Ray Hartjen. Ray, welcome to Just a Dude podcast. Can you give a little bit of an elevator pitch to the listeners out there about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, Nathan, thanks so much for having me. I love what you're doing with Just a Dude, and it's a great opportunity for me, and it's an honor for me to be just a dude on your Just a Dude podcast. Yeah, for your audience out there, my name is Ray Hartjen. I'm a writer and I'm a musician. I'm also an advocate for cancer patients, caregivers, and allies. And I live in Southern California and keep busy with all three of those roles: writing, music, and cancer advocacy.
Yeah, and that's no small feat. I mean, being a writer, music, and advocacy, I mean, those could each be a full-time job in themselves, and here you are doing them all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm trying. And, a lot of times it's, you beg from one to borrow from another to try to do something, right? So it's I was just talking to somebody the other day, how do you make time for music? And it's hashtag Music Monday for me.
Nice.
When I try to carve out a good chunk of Monday just to kind of focus on the creativity around the music and the like. But yeah, it's sometimes difficult. It's like everybody when you have multiple roles, right? There's lots of people in the audience listening, watching today. It's like, you get caught up and you have multiple passions. And I think we've all faced it at some point in time with just work-life balance, right? And so you get caught up with work, but that's not the only thing you do, right? There's other things you want to do. And, that's one of the things I want to talk about with you today. The idea is that we all have, these challenges that we face during our lives, and we all have these obstacles from, between where we are now and where we want to be, and I've had, my share of, obstacles kind of tossed my way, and using a growth mindset, I've used some tools that have helped me kind of refocus on things that are most important to me. And I think that's what really we all want as humans, right? We all want to seek some joy. We want to have some inner peace and peace of mind and a sense of self-satisfaction, right? And I think there's some things that I do with my work, particularly in cancer advocacy, that might just be of interest to you and your audience.
Yeah, I love it. And I know we're going to get into all of this stuff. And what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, even though, okay, I got to tell you, I'm in Northeast Ohio. And so I'm obviously a Cleveland Browns fan, but we're going to talk about your books anyway. Just jokingly. But I mean, you've written books like Immaculate, How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh and me, myself and multiple myeloma. Plus, you're out there playing gigs and advocating for people's. What's the thread that ties all this together for you? Like, what makes Ray Ray?
Yeah, I think I'm just a storyteller. In my professional career as a public relations, corporate communications, and a marketer, it dawned on me decades ago that the way to really engage somebody, whether it's an analyst, a reporter, a customer, a member of the media or what have you, is to kind of frame your messages in stories. As humans, you kind of crave stories, right? We as little kids, we're like, "Mommy, Daddy, tell me a story."
Right.
And those are that we want. So, I think I'm just, a storyteller. I've kind of always been a storyteller, and I've had a lot of pivots throughout my professional life. But when I look back on it a handful of years ago, I saw that the commonality was there's just telling stories here, telling stories there to communicate as fully as possible and to engage others in conversation and in dialogue.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things that, like your motto, and I see it on your website, and I got your website on my opposite screen here, but hashtag punch today in the face. And I love that saying, but can you give the audience a little bit of an idea of what's behind that saying?
Yeah, it evolved. It evolved from "If Not Now, When?" And to go back to the first book that I wrote, Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh. A friend of mine, I'm not a Yinzer. I'm not from Pittsburgh, so I'm not one of your neighbors. In fact,
yeah, you're not a.
I was born in Texas, and as a kid, I grew up a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. So
there you go.
Let me tell you, Nathan, the 12-year-old Ray would look upon me with such disappointment and disregard for the fact that I wrote a book about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But my buddy Tom, he is the Yinzer. He's born in Pittsburgh and loves the town. He, like me, I believe he's the same age I am, 61 years old. Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Steelers were horrible for a long period of time, when they were founded in 1933 to all of a sudden 1972. 1972, things began to come around and turn around. Well, for years and years and years, decades even, Tom had kind of gone through this hypothesis that, he's like, Pittsburgh had to endure a very painful deindustrialization transformation.
Yeah.
And it came out the other side of it. While it's a painful decade or two, it came out the other side as a new economy success story. Pittsburgh just routinely fits into these most livable cities in the U.S. and most livable cities in the world lists that come out. They're viewed now as, leaders in healthcare, research and technology,
Right.
robotics, academia. It's like, wow, this used to be a steel mill town.
Yeah.
Completely a steel mill town. And if you weren't a steel mill town, you were catering to the people who worked in the steel mills, right? So, Tom looked at that and said, well, how come other cities continue to struggle? Detroit continues to struggle, Cleveland,
Sure.
Buffalo,
Yep.
Akron, Gary, Indiana. And in his mind, his thesis was it was the Steelers. When the moments were bleakest for the community, they all of a sudden had these heroes playing over at Three River Stadium that were in their mirror image, lunch pail type of team, tough, blue
Yeah.
collar, the type that took showers after work, not before work to go to work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, Tom talked about this book with his family for decades, talked about it with me for 10, 15 years. And just one day, based on some other things that I'm sure we're going to get to in our conversation today, I just grabbed him by the shoulders and said, if not now, when? As a musician doing gigs, we're always looking for a way to make a few extra bucks. And the best way of doing it is put some stupid saying on the back of a t-shirt, put a logo on the front and sell it for
Yeah,
20 bucks.
exactly.
That's big, right? So that was one of our t-shirts. If not now, when? Right. And that was my message to him. If not now, when? I mean, we're talking about something that started in 1972 that went through the 70s and the early 80s. Let's talk about it. So how about I am a writer? How about if I start this book and we'll see if we ever veer off of your vision? And if we veer off your vision, we'll just course correct. Turned out a year and a half later, we hadn't veered off the vision, didn't need to course correct. And when we had the book, and it's a book that I'm super proud of. I think it's a good book.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a vested interest in saying that, but I'm
Right.
excited about that. But, the whole idea for me was that motto, if not now, when? It was like, what do you want to do? So let's get it done. And that's morphed into punch today in the face because, and I want today to know that I've been here. When I'm at the end of the day, I'm going to look back on it and say, I've achieved something today. Because Nathan, the day is truly a gift. And we know that not everybody received today as a gift. So, how
Yeah.
can we honor them? How can we honor ourselves? How can we honor the day? And that is just to seize the opportunity that is today. So, I want to wear today out. I want today to know that I've been there. So when I'm laying in bed, I was like, I took advantage of you today, and then I'll peek tomorrow and say, I'm coming for you next. All right. So that's
Yeah.
another shirt for another saying for the back of another shirt
Exactly.
for some more income from gigs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you kind of got this, like, you're out here with this vibe that's, living every day as a gift. And I love that. And, one of the things that I always say is, today should be treated as a gift because tomorrow's never promised, right? We never know what's going to happen. I mean, we don't even know. We could walk outside right now and get hit by a car, right? I mean, some things are just out of our control that we can't have. But I love the fact that you're taking every day, by the bull by the horn, so to speak, and running with it.
And
And, go ahead.
and it draws from a personal experience of mine. In March of 2019, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And for those of you out in the audience, if you're not familiar with multiple myeloma, don't feel bad about it because I wasn't aware of it either until I got diagnosed with it. Multiple myeloma is a blood cancer, and it's an incurable blood cancer, yet treatable blood cancer. I'm in treatment. I had treatment 2 days ago. I soon after I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, I revisited it. I wanted to kind of apply a growth mindset to it because I was learning so much. I went to a group, Nathan, the first group I've ever been of anything involved with. It was a cancer patient support group, and I learned so much from them. My time of need, they kind of taught me about how to live with cancer, how to move forward. When I needed a helping hand, they reached out and pulled me forward when in my time of need. That was like 10, 11 days after I was diagnosed that they began to help
Wow.
me, right? And
Yeah.
then when, I soon thereafter said, I want to be that type of resource. I want to be, when I'm feeling good, I'm feeling strong, and someone needs a helping hand, I want to be that person to lend that helping hand to them. And, I began to continue to kind of look at my diagnosis and my fight with cancer from a growth mindset. And I revisited this time management exercise that I used to facilitate back when I did some corporate training when I was with Sony Electronics. And
Hmm.
this is a time management course from Franklin Covey. Stephen Covey is the Covey and Franklin Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is a simple exercise, and I want everybody out in the audience to do it. If you have a pencil and a piece of paper, that's great. And if you don't have a pencil and a piece of paper, it is so easy just to do it mentally in your head. So here we go. It's a timeline exercise. So you just draw a line from left to right, horizontal line. And then at the far left-hand side, make a little tick mark. On the far right-hand side, make a little tick mark. And so there you have a segment, right? Now on the left-hand side, underneath that tick mark, you write the letter B. That stands for your birth. And then you're already ahead of me because everybody out there is smarter than I am. On the right-hand side, just put the letter D, and that's going to represent your death. So, as Nathan just said, hey, tomorrow's not promised, right? The hard part, the introspective part of this exercise is looking at that timeline. This is your time on this planet. This is your time. Where do you think you are? Where do you feel you are? And again, you don't know. Tomorrow is
Right.
uncertain. Where do you think you are? So, take a moment to kind of think about that. And I'll tell you where I always thought I was. When I was facilitating this to small groups and large groups, I'd always just kind of haphazardly throw my tick mark right in the middle. Because Nathan, man, I was going to live forever. And if it wasn't going to
Right. We
be,
all are, right?
yeah, it's going to be 100 or whatever, and I didn't pay much attention to it. Then, after my diagnosis in 2019 was an incurable blood cancer, I looked at that with, and intellectually said to myself, Ray, you're probably a little further to the right than maybe you thought you were before your
Right.
diagnosis, right? So, you know, okay, let's move it over a little further to the right. Let's take it one step further, though, group. What does that mean to you? Where's your tick mark on your timeline, and what do you think it means to you? And I'll tell you what it meant to me when I revisited this, soon after my diagnosis. And I dawned on me, and I was able to articulate in my head that, like a lot of humans, I think I took time for granted. I
Yes.
always took tomorrow for granted, next week, next month, next year, and depending on the topic, maybe decades. It was that one day I am going to ... right?
Right.
So I'm like, I take time for granted, but I didn't stop there. I said, so you take time for granted. Well, what does that really, what else does that mean? How does it manifest itself? You taking time for granted. And, it dawned on me. It's like, dude, I take people and relationships for granted because I take time for granted. I mean, I love Nathan. Nathan's my friend. I care about Nathan. And, I'm thinking about him, but I'll reach out to him tomorrow because, I'm going to be here tomorrow. He's going to be here tomorrow. I'll reach out to him next week. It turns out to be next month. Totally going to get in touch with Nathan next month, and he just like kind of push things back. And that's when I wanted to look at my timeline and say, you know what? I need to reprioritize my life on what's important. What do I want to do? And who do I want to do it with? Right. That led to, if not now, when, which then morphed into Punch the Day in the Face. It's just simply looking back at that timeline. What are the things I want to do? What's most important to me? There's always going to be the time. You're for sure going to be able to get to all the emails and all this minutia of your life
Yes.
that kind of dribbles down. But sometimes you get so focused on that, you're scrolling through TikTok and you waste an hour and you're not doing the thing that you want to do. And that is write a chapter of the book that you're it's to finish the song that you're halfway through. There's something out there that means more to you than just kind of wasting away. So, I encourage everybody out there, you know, take a look, do the timeline exercise and spend some time on it. Not just, a couple of minutes, but keep thinking about it. And what does that mean to you? Right. And then,
Yeah.
if it comes to an opportunity for you to identify, hey, I want to do other things than maybe what I'm doing. How can you reallocate your time to do that? Because some people are like, I don't want to work anymore, but I have to
Right.
work.
Yeah.
So, but what can I do to maybe fit in some of the other things? What are the things most important to you? Who are the people that are most important to you? Let's try to figure out a way for you to accomplish those things. Therefore, when you sit back in bed at night and you're going to sleep, you can look at the day and say, I've made the most of the day. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I've got the sense of inner peace, self-satisfaction, and joy because I'm pursuing things that mean the most to me individually with the people I love and care for the most. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does, absolutely, and one of the things that I think is wonderful about that too, and hopefully for our younger listeners that are out there that maybe in their 20s and 30s, is I think when we're in that age frame is that we think we have more time, right? And we can do all these things, but we may not. And as we get older, I'm in my 40s now, you said you're in your early 60s, and I think we tend to look at things a little different, right? Like I remember when I was in my 20s, I was very money motivated, wanted to get, earn as much money as I could, work as much as I did. And now that I'm older, I'm like, boy, I wish I would have worked less when I was younger and in better shape and explored more than, doing it today.
I don't think anybody sits back on their deathbed and go, you know what? My big regret is that I didn't spend more time at work.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
I don't know.
Nobody does.
I don't know if that's the case, but yes, time does go by. You younger folks out there, I mean, just think about how fast this last year's gone by. Maybe, but
Man.
when particularly if you start a family and you have kids growing up, and next thing you know, I remember one time I love football. I watch a lot of football, but I have two kids. They're 29, 27 now, but they were like 9 and 7 playing soccer. And I remember one year at Thanksgiving, it was like, boy, I can hardly wait. Who's playing football today? It's like the last game of the year in the college football season and the
Yeah.
regular season. I'm like, where did that time go? And it was just a season I kind of missed out because my Saturdays were filled with youth soccer instead of, watching football. But time goes by. I catch myself all the time thinking like, all this, and I'm relating a story in that, that was in the mid 90s. That was 30 years ago.
And that's crazy because I feel like the mid 90s is like yesterday,
Yeah.
That was my
When I
heyday
was
was in the
younger,
90s, but yeah.
I was born in 1964. When I was younger, the 50 station was the oldie station. That was what
Right.
my
Yep.
parents were listening to. The 50 station. Remember, this was when I was in the 70s.
Yeah.
My biggest musical influencer, hair metal. That's
Yes.
40 years ago. So when I was a kid, the oldies station was 20 years old. My favorite music is 40 years old. Time goes by, all you young folks out there, just make the most of it,
It
right? Do what.
And that's a great thing, Ray, because I know the oldies station that we have here, and I'm in the Cleveland market. So the oldies station that we have here, I remember growing up, same like you. It was the oldies was like 50s and 60s. And then as I got a little bit older, it transitioned to the 60s, 70s, and then early 80s, and then it went to 70s and 80s, and now it's like 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I'm like, wait a second, 90s is not oldies,
Yeah, I
But
used,
yeah.
I used to live up in the Bay Area, and I knew I was getting old when my grocery store was playing some kick-ass music.
Yeah, right. You're like, wait a second. Elevator music you can bob your head to, right? And you're like, that's not supposed to happen.
I'm pushing my cart to the store and going, "Wow, man, this soundtrack is awesome!"
Yeah. While your kids are probably going, oh, this music's terrible. That's funny, but I have to ask too because the timeline exercise that you gave us, and you said you'd always put it right there in the middle, and going into your cancer diagnosis, and specifically knowing that you had an uncurable cancer diagnosis, that really had to skew how you viewed your timeline, right?
Yeah, it definitely made me push it to the right. I started thinking about things right away, like what do I want my legacy to be? What are the things that I want to get done before, and what experience before I leave, right? And I've got no plans on leaving. I'm a fighter, kind of
Sure.
aggressive personality by kind of just by naturally coming to it. Some people have a journey with cancer, and I know that's the kind of the more appropriate thing to talk about now is a journey
Yeah.
with cancer
The
because
journey, right?
a fight, there tends to be a connotation of a winner or a loser, right? And there's nobody that sits in an infusion chair at an infusion center getting chemotherapy. There's not a single loser in that bunch. They're all winners, right? And so people have stepped away from that. But going on a journey doesn't motivate me. It doesn't inspire me, Nathan, because it's
Right.
like that's like taking those long car trips with my family, sitting in the back of a
Exactly.
Cadillac, and I don't want to be sitting next to cancer on one of these long, hot road trips.
Exactly.
What motivates me every day is a fight, right? So I have a fight against cancer. But yeah, that timeline exercise, really kind of, shook me awake. And it's, another thing, if you look at, there's a tendency in the cancer community to look at things about loss. What has cancer taken from me? Whether you're a patient or a caregiver or even an ally. And there are some very real losses, and you have to, for your mental health and your emotional health, you have to grieve those losses. There are some things you just can't do. Like, I can't sail around the world, right? I need to be by an infusion center 3 weeks out of 4. But the good news for me is that I wasn't a sailor anyway, right? But
Right, exactly.
I don't need to worry about that. But when I thought about it, my diagnosis was March 11th, 2019. On March 10th, Nathan, I was a husband, a father, a son, uncle, a nephew, a bandmate, a boss, an employee. I had all these roles, right? That I was fulfilling on a daily basis. And with each one of those roles had some accountabilities to it and some objectives and goals that I wanted to achieve. So you know what? March 11th, I was still a father. I was still a son. I was still a parent, a husband, and all that. I had all those same roles. And in a short order, I achieved some other roles. I became a cancer patient advocate, a caregiver advocate, cancer fundraiser. In many ways, cancer's added a lot of responsibility to my life. And, writing my second book, Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, maybe it was through music or something else. I'm not sure. But, soon after my diagnosis, I had the honor, really, and the privilege of being interviewed many times, either through print media, through video, and the like. And so people were catching my story and then, reaching out to me via social media platforms, asking me questions. A lot of them were like, newly diagnosed patients or spouses of newly diagnosed patients. And, it was this tremendous honor that, they would reach out to me and I would, be able to engage with them. But it was also very one-to-one. And I thought, how can I maybe scale this up to do one to many? I thought, I got an idea. I'll write a book about it. And, hopefully it'll be a resource for others to look at. And, it was really important for me to write this book, being a member of the community and to have it for the community, to the community. But I also wanted it to benefit the community. So my net writers proceeds from Me, Myself, and My Multiple Myeloma, they're dedicated to and pledged and donated to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation, the MMRF. Real important for me to do. But what I really love about the book is that it has allowed me to engage with the patients and caregivers and allies from around the world. I've had people reach out to me from Australia, New Zealand, Egypt, Turkey, Iran, of all places, the UK, across the United States. It's been the honor of my life to be able to engage with these patients, because we are all stronger than we know, but together we are stronger still, right? And it's been so wonderful to be able to do that. I was on a podcast, probably 3-4 months ago, and the woman asked me, said she has multiple myeloma too, and she's like, "Would you change your diagnosis?" I thought, "Oh man, her name's Helena." I thought, "Wow, Helena,
Mhm.
on the spot. Here I am on a podcast. I can't take like an hour to think." But what a great question. Hadn't thought about that. And as I was thinking about it for a few seconds, I thought, you know what? I got to go with what's coming from my gut, from my heart, from kind of instinct. And that is, I do not want to have cancer. Don't get me wrong, Nathan. But
Right.
but you know what? I don't think I would change my diagnosis for the growth that I've had as a human, as a person since March of 2019 till now. I am a different Ray. I'm a better Ray. I've had more meaning in the last 6.5 years than previously. And I don't think I would change that. Keeping in mind, I would love not to have cancer.
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I would say that anybody that has cancer would love to not have it,
Yeah.
never have the diagnosis, right? Or have it be able to, go into some type of remission or be cured. But yeah, you're right. You've got a disease that's incurable. But would you say that your diagnosis went from just a cancer diagnosis to a purpose?
Yeah, it was a life-changing moment for me. I spoke to a guy not that long ago. He had a cancer scare and was worried about it. And in that 1 week between tests and getting the results back, which we in the cancer community called scanxiety, scan and
Oh, I'm
anxiety
sure. Yeah.
together, right? So it's, what's the scan going to come back and say? And he was like, "Oh no, oh, no, no!" Great news for him. Came back, everything was negative. It was something else. It wasn't cancer, but he used that as a course correction in his life. He didn't need to have a cancer diagnosis. He just needed a cancer scare to make some meaningful changes to bring him a better sense of joy and self-satisfaction, inner peace. And that's what like I encourage the audience here today. When you're doing that timeline exercise, try to use tools like that and this growth mindset to identify what's most important to you. You don't need a cancer. I don't want you to have a cancer diagnosis,
You're right.
meaningful changes in your life. I want you to discover meaningful changes, organically and on your own, but discover them. Don't just do what you do on Tuesday because you did it on Monday and then do it again on Wednesday. Next thing you know, a week goes by, a month goes by, a year, a decade goes by, and you're no closer to getting your true satisfaction, your true calling, your true meaning, true value of what you want out of your life.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what? It's something just myself sitting here, Ray, talking to you, I realize that I've missed a lot. I've let a lot go by, and I'm not getting any younger by any means. And, it's time for me to start looking for those opportunities and, why, no, why wait? Do it today, right?
Yeah.
Because tomorrow's not promised.
And don't kick yourself because I think it's kind of like I said,
It
20
seems like
minutes
a lot
ago.
of us do it, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'm unique. I think it's kind of common that we tend as humans to take things for granted, time for granted. So yeah, don't kick yourself up for it. The best thing to do is just like, man, I recognize it. So once you recognize it, and it's not like you're going to make every day a great day. There's going
Right.
to be ups and downs.
There's going to be, yeah,
You want a trend line going in the right direction, right? When I was recovering from
exactly. You're going to have those speed bumps, right, Ray? But you want it to be up. You want it to be in the upward
yeah,
trajectory.
don't look
But
hour over hour or day over day. Look week over week or month over month. When I was recovering from my stem cell transplant, my attending physician was telling me like, hey, don't look at it day over day. Look over week over week, and like, how do you feel? Your strength coming back and so forth. It's like, oh yeah, that's a lot better because you are going to have those ups and downs. But let's make sure the trend line is going the right direction. And we're all different. We all have that one thing that we want to do. That one thing that we want to accomplish, or multiple things. Right? Find yours, people, and then make up a plan to do it. Don't worry about finishing. Sometimes you get this, it's like, I want to do this. And it's like, oh man, it's going to take forever.
right.
No, it might take a long time. It's not going to take forever, but it's never going to happen if you don't take that first step, right? If you want to write a book, you got to write the first word first. Let's work on the first word. Don't worry about the end at the back and think about the 60,000, 70,000, 80,000 words that you need to get in between those. Let's work on the first one. Get started. That's the key. You'll be able to finish, but you'll never finish if you don't get started.
Yeah. And that's such a great philosophy to live by or to guide your life by, because I say that a lot too. In my past career, I was what they call Scrum Master, basically, like a project manager for IT. And a lot of my thing was servant leadership. And, one of the things I would always tell my folks is, hey, it's okay to fail, right? At least you tried, right? And it's not a failure. It's just one way that it didn't work. Going back to those old adages. And it's like the worst thing that's going to happen, always ask because the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to say no, and always try because the worst thing that's going to happen is it doesn't work. Okay, you're right where you are today.
And when you fail, you learn. There's not a single
Exactly.
there's not a single person who ever learned to walk by just walking.
Exactly. Nobody just stood up one day and started walking.
They learn to walk by falling a lot, right? And
Yeah.
so you don't fear of failure, man. That's a real thing. And it's, the fear of, sometimes putting yourself out there, some of the things that you want to do. It's like, wow, man, other people have to see it. Like in music, man, other people are going to hear your music. They might think it sucks. How are you going to deal with that? But you just got to deal with it. Some people are going to think it sucks. Some people are going to like it.
Absolutely.
And if you are kind of that creative person, you are that artist, strive to suck, strive to be great.
Right.
But what you
Yeah.
don't be is right in the middle. Because
Exactly.
right in the middle, there's a lot of super successful people who are successful because they suck.
Yeah.
It elicits a reaction, and that's the reaction
Yeah.
that
They
you want.
suck in the right way, right?
Yeah, they suck in the right way, and they make it happen. So fear of failure. Don't let that. Don't try not to. It's easier to say than to do, but try not to let that fear of failure keep you from getting started and doing whatever that you're trying to achieve. Because I believe in all of you. Like I said earlier, you are stronger than you know. I am stronger than I knew before my cancer diagnosis. When I had people, I just had a guy reach out to me, a woman reach out to me today through social media, inquiring about a stem cell transplant. And I told her, man, it's not going to be easy. It's hard, but I can tell you, you can do it. You are stronger than you know, and I am here for you if you need me. Our community is here for you, and together we are even stronger than we are individually. So let's get through this. It's going to be worth it for you to undergo a stem cell transplant in your treatment. So it's not going to be easy. But no one ever said this
Yeah.
is going to be easy, Nathan.
No, no, and nobody ever wants a cancer diagnosis to begin with, but, I love the fact that you're fighting on, and not only that, but you're talking to me and the audience about, a good way to live your life, and you're not just talking, you've actually done it because now I'm seeing, you've written, what, 3 books now? The Indy 500, your Steelers book, plus, me, myself, and my multiple myeloma, but how did you go from, quote, unquote, "a normal life" to actually writing stuff that people wanna read?
Well, I sure hope people want to read it. There's 4 books. I don't want you to forget a book
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
called Revenue Orchestration, Today's New Era of B2B Sales and Marketing. And I have a 5th book by the time this podcast is broadcast. It's my first ever novel. It's called Outflanked, and it will be available out there. So, I wanted to kind of get
Excellent.
creative pursuits there. There are plenty of creative pursuits available through nonfiction writing, but there's I wanted to at least try some of the fiction. We'll see. That was my first novel, Outflanked, and based on your all's feedback, the reviews that you give for it might be my last novel, or maybe it's just my first. Yes, the readers will decide. But yeah, to really give you a simple answer, it's just kind of living those mottos that we talked about earlier. If not now, when? And punch it in the face. It's just living those to the fullest, right? Writing a book seems like a daunting task, when you look at it. It's not. Did you ever read the original Tom Clancy books at all, Nathan?
Yeah, some of them, yes.
Remember those giant books? Well, it turns out people don't. My publisher, Morgan James Publishing, tells me, and they told me when I wrote Immaculate, it's like people don't. You have to watch your word count because people don't buy thick books anymore. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I pulled
Short
up
attention spans, right?
picked up a copy of War and Peace on my desk. Look at this Tolstoy, War and Peace. This is over 1,000 pages. And he goes, "You're absolutely right. Classic literature. Wonderful book. Nobody buys that book anymore." When did you buy that copy?
Right.
I was like, true. I bought that copy like 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
Immaculate was 132,000 words when I turned it in. And they're like, "No, that's too big." We fought court. We cut a story about Iron City beer. And we cut a story about Roberto Clemente, and it's down to like 130,000 words. It's pretty thick book.
Yeah.
That's for its size. A novel is like 65,000 words, 60,000 words, right? So break it down a little bit. You don't need to write your 60,000 words in a day, but if you write 500 words a day in 120 days, you have a 60,000 word manuscript, right? So in 4 months, you have a book. It's just kind of breaking it down. What do you want to achieve? I want to tell this story. How can I tell that story? Well, I got to get started on it. I don't have to do it all today, but a couple hundred words, here, a couple hundred words there. Next thing you know, there's 500 words. I've kind of done my quota for today, right? And now it's time to move on to some of the other things that I need to do. For me, it was seizing the opportunity of the day, punch today in the face. If not now, when? The book's not going to write itself. So I need to do it. And, if you're doing things that interest you, you'll be able to find that passion. I mean, I just said 5,000 words a day. That's not that many. I mean, if for a writer to write, it's
Yeah. If you're good at it, you're used to it, right?
yeah,
That's
you can
nothing.
easily write 800 to 1,000 words. I mean, that's like a pretty decent sized blog post, So you get 1,000 words there. Then now you're down to 2 months, and you've got a manuscript down. So when you think of those prolific writers like Stephen King and Jeremy Robinson and others, I mean, their books are, they're just doing what they love to do and getting started, getting it done.
Yeah, and your books are not the only thing you've written, because I know I've seen some blogs on your website, and you've been quoted in national media and written for Yahoo and Salesforce, stuff like that. But what's the wildest thing you've ever written about?
Wildest thing. Wow, what a great question, man. I wish you had prompted me and maybe sent that via email.
Sorry. Hey, don't worry. I can edit out any pauses, so I'll make it look like you came up with it in a second.
I used to write articles on the San Jose Sharks for Yahoo. And I wrote an article once. There was nothing wild about it, but my editor at Yahoo was like, here's some ideas, and one has something to do with like the zombie apocalypse. So I wrote, this is the starting lineup the Sharks should roll out when facing off against a team of zombies in the zombie apocalypse.
I like that.
And yeah, it was as ludicrous as that sounds. I'm going to try to find that on Yahoo in some place and maybe put it up on my website. But I remember getting feedback like on Twitter. What did I just read? I remember this one woman wrote, and I'm like, well, yeah, but that might be kind of the wildest thing I wrote about. I can tell you one of the things that is the most rewarding thing that I've written about.
Yeah, please.
I am a huge auto racing fan, IndyCar fan, and the Indy 500 is like my thing, man. I love the Indy 500, and it dates back to when I was a kid, and I'm going through the Scholastic America catalog, and like, geez, I was probably like in fourth grade, fourth grade, or something like that. In the Scholastic America catalog, I saw this gem. It was called the Indy 500 30 Days in May, written by a writer named Hal Higdon. And what that book was a chronicle of the 1970 Indy 500 from April 30th, the day before the track opened for practice, to May 30th, the running of the Indianapolis 500. And that book just ignited my passion for the event and for the sport, right? And for years, I thought, man, I would love to rewrite this book instead of about the 1970 race, but to write it about a current edition of the race. And so, Nathan, if
Here we
not
go.
now, when? I thought, I'm going to do it for the 2024 race. So, the book that I read that ignited my passion, I reread that book, Nathan, like 2-3 times a year for like a decade.
Wow.
I love that book. I have a copy around here someplace that I just recently bought a retro read reprint of a copy. The Indy 500 is different now. It's no longer a month-long type of process. It's really a couple of weeks at the lead up to the race. But there's really, it's a life-changing event for the people who win it. It's really kind of a year-long thing. So that's the approach I took. The book starts with the last 2 laps of the 2023 race and then goes through the entire year up until the victory banquet the day after the 2024 race. So the book's called The Indy 500, Year-Long Quest to Win the Greatest Spectacle in Racing. And that's been, a really rewarding thing for me to put out because I've wanted to do it for such a long time, and pay kind of homage to the book that's ignited my passion, the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah.
It's been a bit slow on the sales cycle so far, but I'm hoping it's gotten good reviews. So I'm hoping that over time people are going to appreciate it. And then, man, if I can capture the imagination to some casual reader and they become a fan of the Indy 500, then mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the same thing I say with, to the podcast. If we reach just one listener and give them something that's going to improve their lives or help them to better themselves in some way, then we've won. Right.
Yeah.
It was a job well done, and I think that's the same thing. But your book, the Indy 500 book, just came out in May, right?
Yeah. It came out in May.
So it hasn't been out there too long. So we got some, we can hopefully get some more exposure to it. But yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I love the fact that you took that from something from your childhood and said, you know what, and really, look at it from, it would kind of be cool. I don't know if you did it, but a comparison between, your old book and the new book and how things have changed, because like you said, it was a month long to now a couple of weeks or really the year journey, but
and the similarities of it, like, you can't mention like, there's a chapter in there about Andretti Global is going to enter a car in the 2024 race for Marco Andretti. Now, you can't talk about Marco Andretti without talking about his father, Michael Andretti.
Exactly.
You can't talk about Michael Andretti without talking about Marco's grandfather, Michael's father, Mario Andretti.
Exactly.
So it's not just about going up to the Indy 500. It's also talking about these historical figures, right? And that's what the Higdon book did a lot too. In 1970, it was talking about, AJ Foyt, but you can't talk about AJ Foyt just in the context of 1970. You also have to talk about him at the time as a 3-time winner, 61, 64, 67, the legend of Super Tex and what made him that way. So that was kind of the fun part of writing the book is, revisiting the way Higdon did it in his book of, not just talking about that race, but also, these characters that, that lead up to it. And then, meaningful stuff about their history and the history of the race.
Yeah.
I don't even know I guess the 2024 race was the 108th running of the Indy 500. I mean, there's a lot of history to be able to put in the book. And so, yeah, it was
now coming back to that thick book, if you did the full history, right?
It is almost as thick. It's not quite as tall, or wide, but it's got a lot of words in as well. It's not a children's book, but I am looking to, hopefully, to get some younger readers involved. I've reached out to a couple of schools and saying, "Hey, I will donate a, box of books if are interested in having your kids read this." And maybe they'll get wrapped up in the Indy 500.
I
You're
love that.
close.
Yeah.
In the Cleveland metro area, you
Yeah.
can make a trip out there
I can make a quick trip.
yeah,
Absolutely. Of course, I have not gone, but I think that would be an awesome experience. I'm not a fan of watching races on television. Just like the same, I'm not a fan of watching golf on television. To me, it's a little bit different, but I do love live experiences. It's the same thing like you brought up, the San Jose Sharks, and I'm a huge hockey fan. And I always tell people, I'm like, you lose a lot on television.
oh,
You
yeah.
need to go see it in person. And that's the difference. I think that's when you really get people hooked, is if they can actually go to a race, go to a hockey game, whatever it may be, and see it in person. The atmosphere is just so much different than watching it at home.
Yeah, two things there. Better for hockey, try to play it, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
I was a hockey player for a long time. In fact, I just officially retired. Haven't played in about a decade, but I did get rid of my hockey bag, and my daughter was like, "Well, when did you play last?" I said, about 10 years ago, but I was always keeping hope that I will get back out there. But man, try to play hockey and you understand that, it's soccer on ice, and the amount of exertion that you put in. You dudes on the NHL level, if you're playing defense, you might play 45 seconds at a time. If you're playing offense, you'll play about 30, 35 seconds at a time because that's all you can do.
And you are
You're
spent. Yes.
completely gassed. And, in TV, sometimes it's hard to follow the puck. You're there in person. It's something else. It's
It is.
that point in auto racing. Auto racing is not for everybody. And I get it, man. Particularly like in a NASCAR race, the average NASCAR race, a stock car race, is over 3 hours long. The average Formula One race is about an hour and a half. Average IndyCar race is about an hour and 40, 45 minutes. But, the repetition of it. But when you're there in person, it is sensory overload.
Yes.
The sounds, you can feel these cars go by. You can sort of taste it. You certainly can smell the racing
Yeah.
fuel and stuff like that. And it is sensory overload. And like you bring a kid, it's like bringing a kid to a monster truck rally, and
Yes.
it's the same thing. It's just, but you're just like, what do I am supposed to pay attention to first? Is it the sight, the sound, the smell, the taste?
Yep.
Auto race is wild, and you might as well go to the biggest one of them all.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to do it, especially, and that's one of the things too, I was going to say is not only like in an auto race, you get there, and I've been to more, drag races, drag strips,
Yeah.
and because my dad does drag racing. Well, he used to, he's a little bit older now, so he doesn't do it as much. But, when you would see those top fuel dragsters, you see how fast they go in a couple of seconds at a quarter mile, and you're like, wow, that's crazy. But if you are there and you can feel it, you can literally feel these cars throughout your whole body. And I've even seen the same thing. I went to some Formula One races with my grandfather when he used to work for Goodyear in Mid-Ohio. And we went to some of those and just hear, the zing, those cars just zinging by and feeling it. It's just a whole new experience.
Drag racing is a trip. And when you go to an NHRA event, every
Yep.
ticket is a garage pass, basically, right? So,
Yeah.
like, I've been to a number of Formula One races, and even as a member of the Paddock Club, which is, top flight stuff, but you still don't get access. Nobody does access like the NHRA.
No.
You are
It's a bit,
right
you just
there.
walk through. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're talking to your favorite driver. You are chatting with the crew. What are you doing here? We're replacing the cam. They're tearing down the
Exactly.
engine all the way down and rebuilding all the way up in between heats. And you are right.
That's crazy.
At
Yeah.
a NASCAR top levels with, or not NASCAR, but NHRA drag racing, top levels, funny car and top fuel dragsters. You can feel those wherever you are, but particularly
Wherever you are.
we're sitting up close or sitting behind them. I remember at Seattle International Raceway, living up there. Behind it, you're getting hit with bits of rubber and stuff like that. You
Yep.
feel the exhaust. It's
And smell the gas and everything. Oh yeah, it's an amazing thing. And if you've ever walked on the track, this is for people listening. I made the mistake once of walking on the track and not realizing it was sticky.
Yeah.
And I was wearing untied shoes and I walked right out of them. So, it is funny just to see everything, but yeah, you have to experience it in person for sure. And I love that you brought that up because I encourage anybody, if not today, when, right? Do it. If you've been wanting to do it, do it. It goes into our whole theme here. But, Ray, I do want to switch gears, pun intended. But you're also a musician, and I would be, remiss if I didn't ask you about this. But are you still playing with the band, the Chronic Padres?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I'm in California. My singer, Scott Srochek, he moved to Florida for income tax purposes. So
That makes sense.
we are bi-coastal, which makes things difficult, right? So we're trying to figure out, a way to do things. He was out here in January for the NAMM convention, which is it's like Christmas for musicians. It's the National Association of Music Merchants, a big show in Anaheim, and you get to talk to everybody who produces any amount of type of gear, hang out and, go see concerts and, chat with artists and things like that. So we're trying to figure things out, writing music to record, but, to make it work out for us, we need to figure out kind of like a short little tour. It doesn't make sense for me to fly to Florida for one gig. It just makes sense for him to fly
Exactly.
here. Right. So, where can we meet, or where can we line something up for a couple of weeks of performances? So, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that makes sense. Yeah.
we're still trying. What I'm trying to do right now is get some of the music that I've written into demo format and share it online. I used to live in the Bay Area. My wife and I relocated to Southern California a little over a year ago to be closer to our daughter and her husband. And so up in the Bay Area, there was this musician. His stage name is the Fantastic Negretto. And he was a former R&B singer. Went through some things in his life, both health related and just in his head, and it decided to reinvent himself as a blues artist. And as a blues artist, he would go down in the Bay Area. The train system is called BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. So he'd go down to the train stations, and his philosophy was, if I could engage people, get people to stop on their morning commute or their afternoon commute, and just kind of you know, connect with them, then maybe I'm onto something. And if they just kind of walk by, maybe I'm not onto something. Turned out he was onto something. He's won 2 Grammys in the blues category
Wow.
in the last 5 or
Yeah.
6 years, right? So he's onto something, right? But where I am in Mission Viejo, I'm looking around. It's not really a train station. So
Yeah,
what am I going to
exactly.
do? So I thought, what I'm going to do is it's costs like $20 to distribute a song online. So I'm just going to use some of these songs, do them, kind of, brutally raw. I don't consider myself to be a good singer, and the medication I take affects my voice to begin with. But I'm going to at least put it out there and then let people decide. Is this something I should professionally produce and release, or is it something that maybe we should maybe sell to somebody else, or is it maybe something that we should just let go away and pretend like we never heard it, right?
Right.
And so
Yep.
there are tools that we have. I don't know where my Zoom is around here, but there are tools that basically fit on my desk that can allow you to have at least a demo put out there. So in
Yeah.
in lieu of live performing right now, so, I'm going to try to get some of these songs out there, put them up on Spotify, YouTube Music, and the like, and just get people's reaction. I'm going to use the online form as my train station.
I love that. And you know what? What better way to use than to use an online platform where you're not getting just locally, right, feedback. You can get feedback all over the world.
Yeah, and again, you have to, you also get you have to have the thick skin to it. It's like, it sucks.
You do. Anytime you put anything online, you got to have thick skin. Let me tell you, I found that out real quick after starting the podcast. So, but excuse
I
me.
love your podcast, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I like the concept of it, and you are a professional, gracious, intelligent, engaging host. So
Don't let my wife hear that. No, I kid. But Ray, I have to ask, what type of music do you enjoy playing? Is there like a specific genre? Do you have a mix of genres that you like to do, or is there
yeah,
like one thing? What are you into?
good question. And it's changed over time with my age. I'm 61. Like I said earlier, my biggest musical influences were first Elvis to begin with,
Hmm.
and then Eddie Van Halen and playing the guitar. Hair metal is like my thing, right? But hair metal requires a full accompaniment of people. It requires a lot of gear. It requires, you don't play hair metal at 4:30 in the afternoon, as happy hour
No,
starts.
you don't.
You start at 9 o'clock at night, you end at 1 in the morning. Drag it. I thought, those days, while I love them, are over. The concept that I approached Scott with for the Chronic Padres is like, hey, dude, how about everybody likes back in the day, back in the 90s? You might not remember this, Nathan, but back in the 90s on MTV, everybody loved the Unplugged episodes. Bring in
Oh,
your
yeah. Oh, no,
Unplugged.
I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Like Nirvana. Yeah. Alice in
Alice in
Chains, I think was on.
Chains,
Yeah. Oh,
Unplugged, and
yeah.
you have these wonderful programs, but they sold a lot of records about it too. And I'm like, how about we do that? How about we take our favorite rock and roll songs and pop songs that people recognize, and we just strip them down to their bare essentials. Acoustic guitars, two guys, two acoustic guitars, two microphones. Our setup is about 30 minutes. Our teardown's about 25 minutes. We're a happy hour band. That's how we build ourselves, the Bay Area
Yeah.
happy hour band. So that's what I like to play, and I have been doing, probably for about 10 years now, is stripped down classics. Today I was just listening to, I was in the car. There's a Night Train by Guns N' Roses, and I was just thinking, I wonder what that would sound like stripped down, one guy, acoustic guitar. And I haven't bothered to play that yet today. But after this podcast, that's what
There
I'm
you
going to do.
go. Now you got something to do.
I want to try
Yeah.
to break that down. So I like playing music like that, stripping down songs, particularly when we're playing like at a beer garden, winery, or something like that.
Oh, and that's the perfect type of music too. If you're at a
Yeah,
beer garden
it's
or
more
a
like
winery.
background.
Yeah.
Like, we're not up there to be like, wow, people are here to see us. They're there to drink, to have conversation, and to hear us, right? And then
Yeah. You're there to enhance the experience, right?
yeah, and so, it's kind of cool to see someone's reaction. It's like, oh, wow, I've never heard White Snakes. Here I go again on my own, stripped
Right.
down to one guy on an acoustic guitar. But that's what we do. And one of the things that I also like to do is, because again, I'm, a little self-conscious about my voice, is I like to sing women's parts. I like to do like Dolly Parton's Jolene, because what's that?
Oh, yeah.
The 61-year-old dude supposed to sound like singing Jolene?
Yeah. You don't do it in a falsetto, do you?
It probably sounds like the way I'm going to do it, right? Because no one's like really familiar with it. I like doing like Miranda Lambert songs, and I've actually just mentioned two.
Oh, yeah.
Those are also things that Scott and I added to our repertoire, was country songs, because the ladies like them, and that's the only reason we started picking up guitars in the first place, is that the ladies like guitar players. And then there's our own music, and we sometimes struggle with that. It's like, do people want to hear our own music? It's sort of like going to see your favorite band. It's like, hey, this is one from our new album. It's like, let's go run get a
Yeah.
beer real fast.
Exactly. You're like, I don't want to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
here's a
it's one of
Chronic
the ones in
Padres.
between. Yeah.
Here's a Chronic Padres original for, okay, get back to it.
Get back to the unplugged. No, I love that though, because that just like struck a big memory of me, just going back to those MTV Unplugged. And I'm like, man, that's something I would love to sit there. I don't drink anymore, but when I was sitting at a beer garden or something, that would have been right up my alley for sure.
Yeah, and we get a lot of good feedback for it. There's a lot of places in California and in Florida, although we haven't played there yet. A lot of places in California to play, all these different wine regions and all these craft brewers and things like that. That's kind of like our niche. Calls us the happy hour house band, and it's fun to get out there and again, when you're 61 years old, it's a lot easier just to set up a quick little PA and
Yeah.
and have a couple of guitars ready to go, and set up in 30 minutes, tear down in about 25. It's even faster, and it's way better than setting up for
Lugging all the equipment, all the
4 or 5
amplifiers and
giant
helping the
monster.
drummer, right?
Yeah, the drummer alone is a
Oh my gosh, right?
Singers never help. Singers are always prima donnas, and they're like, I'm not helping.
I gotta rest my voice.
I'm going to show up with my microphone, and I'm going to warm up with a bottle of Jack Daniels.
You're- Exactly.
The drummers out there just begging help. It's like, dude, guitar player, please help me. And some of the stuff that they have to carry in. I used to play with a good friend of mine. His name's Joe, and Joe had this it's like I swear it was a body in this like rolling like hockey bag gear. It's so heavy. That was just cymbal stands and stuff like that.
Man, yeah.
Chugging that in, and multiple trips back and forth. And like I said, I've never seen a singer that's volunteered to I'll help out there.
I got your back, right?
Singers at the bar drinking, warming up with their Jack Daniels, chatting up all
It's
the
for the
ladies.
throat, right? Yeah.
Chatting up all the ladies, the questions you get, it's hey, guitar player, can you introduce me to the singer? I was like, yeah, whatever.
Right. So, Ray, if I were to go to one of your shows, what is one of the songs that I would have to hear? Like, what's one of your favorites that you like to play?
Wow, man, it's a great question. I like playing Jolene. I do the one that I sing with is a scaled, v- done very slowly, acoustic guitar, Lady Gaga Poker Face. I would like to get your reaction to that one. It's like, oh wow, a dude singing
Yeah.
Poker
I'm
Face.
just thinking about how would that go, because I'm hearing the beat in my head, from the song, but I'm like, how would you do that acoustically? So I got to hear that one.
I,
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I tell you what, if it's not on my YouTube channel, I'm going to record it this week. I'll send you a link to it on my
All
YouTube
right.
channel. I
Yeah,
like doing
I'm
that
gonna.
one. I like doing a Puddle of Mud song called "She Hates Me."
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I
you're
like
like hitting all my vibes here, Ray.
Yeah, I like, Scott's favorite band is the Goo Goo Dolls. We do
Yeah.
Slide. He sings that one. I like doing that. I like playing a lot of the country songs again because the ladies like it and people tend to sing along with it. And that is so cool when people, one's a Luke Bryan song called Play It Again. And I have vivid memories in my mind of, women standing up, shout back, play it again, play it again, play it again.
Yeah.
That's I love to play that. And then I mentioned the White Snake. Here we go again on your own acoustic. To strip it down. Jack and Diane. There's just so many. Again,
Yeah. Oh
we like to
man.
we like to play those songs that people are familiar with, but they haven't heard them maybe in this
Haven't
way.
heard that version. Yep.
Yeah,
I love, and that's what I love about it. I think is what's really piquing my interest is just hearing that stripped down acoustical version because it's like the relaxing version of the original song,
yeah.
right? In some cases,
Now
but
I don't think I've ever played a Nirvana song, but we talking about unplugged. They do have some Alice in Chains in the old set list as well. So
yeah, nice.
Nutshell being one of the favorites to play. So,
Yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, Ray, let's get serious for a second, just a little bit, because we're going to talk about, you've been fighting your multiple myeloma since 2019, and you're really out here advocating, for patients and caregivers and really building a community. How do you keep that positive, punch today in the face energy going, while working? Because I have to assume there's got to be times when you maybe get a little bit down when you're, helping people just because it's just a tough emotional thing, right?
yeah. And one of the things I've worried about lately is toxic positivity. It's something that I certainly hope I don't come across. By nature, I'm a positive person. When I'm positive, I feel better. And who doesn't want to feel better?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
by nature, a positive person. So I try to be positive. But when I'm doing little TikTok video or Instagram, Facebook video or something like that, or I have recently become an ambassador for a drug company called Legend Pharmaceuticals, Legend Biotech, for a CAR T cell therapy drug called Carvitki. So there's some ads that they put up using me through my social media platforms. I'm just like Ray H, but it's, for example, like on my multiple myeloma Instagram handle and my multiple myeloma Facebook, and there'll be people that will engage through comments, and sometimes, they're not in a good place, and you have to
Oh, yeah.
recognize that. It's like, man, I'm sorry you're struggling with this. Have you, but there are resources out there. Are you aware of some of these resources yet? Maybe either locally, nationally, or what have you. To help you, get through it. So I try to be. How you feel is valid, regardless of how you feel. Right? I tend to
Mhm.
feel, positive. There are better days than worse, but I don't tend to get the blues that much. And
Well, that's
when it
good.
does happen,
That's a great
yeah,
thing, yeah.
and for me, it feels better when I don't. One of my nurses, I was talking to her about it, maybe about a year ago, and she's like, the blues are fine to go visit. Just try not to move in permanently,
Yeah,
and
don't stay there.
yeah, and but sometimes I do struggle with people who, like, I remember a guy who wrote up on one of these ads that I appear in. It's like, why are you fighting so hard when you're just going to die? And I'm like, I'm ready to type in an answer. It's like, wait a second, hold on a second. And like, what's going on with this guy? Right. He's different than me. And so, I thought about it for a day and I felt compelled to reply back. It's like, man, I don't know what's going on with you, but let me tell you what's going on with me. I made a choice when I was diagnosed. It's like, how do I want to be remembered? How do I want what type of role model do I want to be for my kids? Things don't always go the way that you've maybe scripted out in your head. In life, you're going to be faced with tough times. This is a tough time for me. How am I going to respond to this tough time in my life if my kids can see it? Because my kids at the time, let's see, they're 23 and well, they're 29 and 27 now. It's called 23 and 21 then. They've got a lot of living left to do, I hope, right? And I want them to look at their old man and say, like, hey, this is how my father responded. Some people are going to fight, some people aren't going to fight, and that's the right decision for them, right? But for me, it's like, man, you sound like you're in a difficult place. I hope you're getting the help you need. I hope all that are receiving is just, again, joy and peace of mind. And wherever you are, that's great. And if there's anything I can do to help you, maybe get someplace else from where you are, then let me know. I'm down. I'm signing up for it. Let's see. It's I wanted to fall back to this toxic positivity, this forced positivity that I worry about. I don't want people to think, "Oh, Ray's just going to like shine me on and like everything's going to be all right and stuff like
It's going to
that."
be butterflies and rainbows every day,
Yeah,
right?
and you see toxic positivity, this forced, inauthentic positivity, like in the workplace too. Like, hey, just
Yes.
stop complaining. You're lucky to have a job. You'll be fine. We'll do. You just like put on the smiley face when things aren't right. It's you have to be honest. You have to be authentic. You have to have a degree of integrity. But yeah, I do want to try to not be that person that's just cheerleading and cheering and cheerleading, but it's not recognizing the fact that sometimes I don't feel like cheerleading. And sometimes I don't feel like I want a cheerleader for me. And I need to recognize for sure. And I hope I'm that way that, like Nathan doesn't need cheerleading right now. He wants me to recognize and acknowledge what he is feeling. In the cancer community, it's afraid of loss, afraid of death, scared, a lot of feelings. And that's an important, while I tend to, like I say, tend to be positive, to be attuned with emotional intelligence, the EQ of understanding,
Yes.
not only how I feel, but understanding how others might be feeling. And it took me a long time to learn that, Nathan. I hadn't even heard of emotional intelligence until like 25 years ago or something like that. And for me, it was trying to, I'm still learning. And so I'm glad you asked the question about the positivity. It's important for me. I feel better when I'm positive. I always try to look for the silver lining maybe in the cloud, but I'm also, I think, mature enough and aware enough of, how I feel and certainly I hope how others. So I hope I don't come across as toxically positive, but it is something I even, shared a couple of videos earlier, online, asking my community. It's like, hey man, I'm aware of this. I don't come across this way. And, I got the feedback of people saying, hey, oh, you don't, we appreciate it.
Yeah, but I love the fact too, Ray, that you recognize that it's okay to have those days, those down days, and you can recognize when people just want to be, have the blues and maybe just talk to you about it, and you could go into it with, your positivity or, just go into it as an understanding. And it's nice to know that yes, we're all going to go through these ups and downs, and this comes back, right? Hey, here we are coming, doing a 360, coming back to the beginning again, but you know, the way you look at things and the way you do things, it's okay to continue on. You can have a bad day, but let's not make that a trend, right? Let's try to trend upwards.
Yeah. Let's not dwell on the bad days,
Exactly.
as much as you can. And the saying that's gone around, it's okay, not to be okay. It is okay not to be okay. If you're out there listening or watching, and you don't feel great, it is okay. And how you feel is valid to you, right? And it's sort of like perceptions. When you view perceptions as one person's perception is their reality. Yeah, that's another truthism, right? Recognize the fact. And like when I was younger, for me, it was shake it off, right? I didn't really
Yeah.
kind of understand, mental health as a younger man. I grew up. My dad was a career Army officer. So it's there tends to be like mission focused. What's the mission?
Yep. Knife hand, right?
Yeah, you can worry about how you feel later, But right now we got the
That
mission.
is exactly, and I'm not trying to talk bad about our fathers because they grew up in a totally
Yeah,
different time, right? And I mean, even my dad's still, my dad's still alive now, and he's a little bit older than you, and he's in his 70s, but he was like that too. He was brought up from his father, and who was a World War II vet, and it was always, emotions are not a man's thing, right? We don't show emotion, we just hide things in, and now we've learned a little bit, since then, that it is okay to have emotions, and it is okay to feel bad, it's okay to feel good, it's okay to not be okay, right? Like you said.
and even culturally, with some cultures, the value being calm and collected, and cool, being cool, calm, and collected. There's no room in there for being emotional, right? Because you're cool,
Right.
calm, collected. It's the exact opposite of it. Yeah, and it's the way that I grew up. I mean, my heroes were that way. John Wayne in the movies didn't talk a lot about his feelings,
No,
particularly.
he didn't.
So, that's and like I said, I didn't even heard of the word emotional intelligence and EQ until I was, well, I mean, it was 2000, 2001 when I first heard it.
Yeah.
So I mean, mid 30s. So yeah, I was a late starter, but I think I've advanced, and it's I continually learn, right? But yeah, as a younger person, oh, shake it off, rub some dirt in it.
Yep. Rub
You
some
be,
dirt in it. That's what I was gonna say.
yeah.
Right, exactly. Rub some dirt in it. You'll be fine. Walk it off. You'll be okay. But Ray, you've been in this, for the lack of a better term, fight, right? Because you're fighting your cancer. It's something that can't be cured. So you're fighting it, every day, every week, what you need to do. But for someone who's maybe starting this fight, what's a piece of advice or one thing that you would tell them, as they're starting out in this fight?
Yeah, that you can hack it. There are success stories out there. I know when I was first diagnosed, like my son looks up, multiple myeloma, average life expectancy of 5 years after you get diagnosed. It's like, well, I'm expecting to beat that. I have, thankfully. But there's also, taking consideration to it's on average, like an 85-year-old gets diagnosed with multiple myeloma.
Right.
There's a lot of therapeutic options that aren't available to them. 85 years old would be a pretty tough recipient for a stem cell transplant, like I
Yeah.
had.
Oh, yeah.
I had my
Absolutely.
stem cell transplant in late 2019. I was 55 years old. And treatments they advance all the time. I mean, we're in a weird type of political environment where who
We are. Yeah.
or who knows how this might stall some other advanced treatments through science and discovery. But 30 years ago, the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation has done a great job of getting new drugs to market, and the options for treatment get better all the time. So if you are a new patient getting through this, know that there are a variety of modalities for you to explore through treatment. We tend, as patients, to all start off on the same induction therapy, but after that, there's many different lines of therapy, including CAR T cell therapy, that it shows an awful lot of promise. So just know that there are treatment options. It's an incurable cancer at this point in time, but it's
Right.
treatable. And through
Yes.
treatments, through treatments, it can be managed. So keep that in mind, and then also keep in mind that you are stronger than you know. It's like those stories you read about, like the mother, a kid's trapped into their car, and the mother, lifts the back
Yep.
of a Lincoln Continental off of their car.
Exactly.
When push comes to shove, you've got the strength. You've got the strength to take your meds. You've got the strength to go through the treatments. You've got the strength to go to your doctor's appointments. You've got the strength to eat better and to exercise well. You've got the strength to engage your community and your loved ones and have difficult conversations sometimes. You've got this. And the last thing I'll share with you new patients, perhaps, that might be out there, if you need help, man, we've got a great community. I'm number one. You can reach out to me
Yeah.
anytime you want to. My phone number's in the book.
Who does that? Right.
You can hit me at my website at rayhartjen@gmail.com. On all the social media platforms, my handle is Ray Hartjen, with the exception of TikTok when it's Ray Hartjen 5, I think it is. I think I just pushed that.
For other people, yeah,
And
probably stole your name.
I think my sausage-like fingers on my phone, put in an extra 5. But you can find me out there, Ray Hartjen, and you need somebody on your team. I'm number one on your team. I'm here to help, and it's like I said before, it's been the honor of my life engaging with patients, caregivers, and allies.
Yeah.
It's
And
pretty
Ray,
good.
one thing I wanted to ask you too on that front is, because I know you've been going through treatment and a lot of folks are going to have to because it's treatable, right? Not curable. But have you still been able to quote unquote live a somewhat normal life even though you've had to go through these treatments?
Yeah, there's fatigue
Sure.
that creates a problem. I'm on an intravenous chemo drug and another one, an immunotherapy drug that's injected in my stomach. Those create some nausea for me that I got to deal with through medication. I am in a treatment center. I'll have treatment in 5 days again. One of them is going to be about 4 hours long on top of another. So I spend some time in a chair. I'm kind of tethered to it. My wife and I, after that treatment, we're going to go to Italy for a little over a week. Uh,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah,
I mean, life is different. There's a new normal, right? I can't
there's
take.
some restrictions, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
But
think I do have a week off on my current treatment schedule every month. So the most I could travel would be like 13 days, unless I wanted to miss a treatment, and then I would just go on. But I don't like missing treatment. I like getting treatment because I like fighting cancer.
yeah,
So, I don't like to miss, treatment, but yeah, like I said, I will no longer be allowed to sail around the world, if I wanted to take off and
right.
3
You're
years on
not
a
taking
boat.
a year's trip, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that, but, yeah, I have a normal life. I do have a port, and I just did a video about today,
Oh,
some
yeah.
patients asked, questions about my port, but, I can swim, I can get in the ocean, I can do anything with it. I like to not do that the day of treatment when I have a
Yeah. Don't blame you, right?
freshly, poked hole in there. But yeah, there's, just, there's a lot of people with a lot of other diseases that have it a lot worse off than I do. I mean, just in the
And
cancer
that's
ward, there's people there that are there all day for chemotherapy.
yeah, and that's just one thing I wanted to kind of get out there because I figured that's where you were going to go, but I just wanted to show people that you're not alone. You can still, even though you're fighting, you can still live a somewhat normal life, and make it impactful not only to yourself, to your family, and to others.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, keep keep that viewpoint, you patients out there, and then you just allies of patients, people that one out of three people in the United States are going to be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. That's the low end of the
Wow.
studies. One study
Yeah.
says 40% or 4 out of 10 people. Whether it's you or not, just not even think about that. It's going to be somebody at least somebody in your professional network, your personal network, your family, or what have you. If you're an ally out there, if you're a caregiver, it's also difficult for you folks as well, not just the patient. Sometimes you need the help. I've had so many spouses reach out to me through social media platforms. Make sure that you attend to your needs as well. And make sure all of you out there that are listening, you are more than just your physical being. And sometimes we kind of think about, oh, my back is sore, I'm tired, or something like that.
Right.
I learned for me with my diagnosis. When I was first diagnosed, man, they're like, we're going to do an induction therapy for 3 to 6 months, and then we'll, probably do a stem cell transplant. I'm like, all right, 3 to 6 months induction therapy. I'm going to do it in three, and we're going to do we're going to have the stem cell transplant. I will be in great shape for it. I'm eating really well. I'm exercising hard, getting in good shape because I'm viewed as like a fight training camp, and so there's my fight. And then, my specialist at Stanford University comes up to me and says, why are you in a rush to get a stem cell transplant? I mean, you might not need one at all. Maybe the induction therapy just beats it down to a level that you don't need one. I'm like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. But it was 2 weeks in, Nathan. My son and my wife and I were going to PF a little less than 2 weeks. It's a Friday night. And so I've been diagnosed for like 12 days. And I'm sitting down there at the PF Chang's and I'm looking at the menu and I could barely even read the menu. I'm just exhausted. Just, I mean, for 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning was cancer. Last thing I
Hmm.
thought about when I went to bed was cancer. A lot of times in the middle of the day, I'd think about cancer. And, I was just physically worn out, but it wasn't the physical aspect of it. I was mentally and emotionally washed out too. So I
Yeah. Burned
went
out,
back to
right?
I went back to this, growth mindset again. And I thought about it. And being a musician, I thought about a mixing board, levels, right? And so I realized that my whole being is more than just my physical being, right? It's my physical being, mental, emotional and spiritual being. For me, for others, it might be some, you might have other considerations in there. But I recognize that for myself. And I recognize that if I have a strength in one area, maybe I can pull up some of those areas that might be lagging. But conversely, the other can happen too. If one of those other areas are neglected, maybe they can pull down one of my strengths, right? And so, like I use physical conditioning as one aspect of it. Working out, when I work out, I feel good and I feel strong. And if I feel strong, that gives me the energy to go to the grocery store and to source nutritious foods for me to prepare for myself. And that's going to, help me, so like they blend together. So you folks out in the audience, if you guys are still hanging in with us, and if you are, thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
View yourself as your whole being, right? Tend to the needs of your whole being. You are a complex being. For me, like I said, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, tend to all of those needs, because if you neglect one or more, it can drag down some of these strengths that you have. And we don't want you to
Absolutely.
drag down. We want you to peak performance.
I love that, Ray. That's such great advice. And I mean, and that's for anybody. That doesn't have, you don't have to have cancer to follow that advice, right? That's good for anybody out there
I
that's
hope, yeah.
breathing.
Like I said, I hope you find these, life-changing types of things, these little pivots that you can make without having to face some sort of tragedy, a loss of a loved one, something like that. Sometimes it's just like learning, and hopefully you can learn through, less more benign circumstances than
Yeah,
something that's
you're right.
really severe, right? So
Exactly.
that's my hope for everybody. But we're all learning beings, right? When we're kids, Nathan, we have this like sense of discovery, right? That's because we don't know anything, right? We just go out there, we're just all eyes and ears, and it's like you're discovering new things. And
Just in wonder. Yes.
then we
Yeah.
get to our teens and we know it all. I'm using little air quotes if you're just listening to this.
Yes.
We know it all in our teens. And then as we got a little older, then we start discovering like, maybe I don't know solid. It's like, it's funny how like when you're a teen, your parents don't know jack. Then all of a sudden when
Right.
you're 30, now your parents seem to have gotten a heck of a lot smarter over the years, haven't they? Right.
Yep.
So, I encourage everybody, have that sense of wonderment like you did as a kid. Go out there with like an open mind and a growth mindset and learn. Learning is going to help you live, right? But that sense of discovery, and don't forget to discover about yourself. That's the important things. Don't, we're kind of like molded up, with a lot of forces out there in the environment kind of mold us as who we are. But don't forget who you are, and deeper and discover, what makes you tick as a person, and let's do what you can to achieve
Yeah.
what.
And what I'd like to add to that too, Ray, is it's never too late to improve who you are. I know a lot of people think, oh, I'm getting older. I can't change. I can't do this. But I've found, especially in my life, I've gone through a few different career changes and different things in my life, different hobbies. But it's like I always have that intrigue to do something new, to improve myself, or to just keep moving forward. And it's just something that I want to give out there, that no matter what your age is, no matter what your situation, you can always strive if you want to, right? It's up to you, but you can be a better version of yourself. You can do new things. Don't put off tomorrow what can be done today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's never too late. I mean, it is too late for me to be the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, I'm not going to be doing that either. So
yeah, it's probably too late. I'm not going to say never. I mean, there's still a chance, right? But yeah, I'm not going to be a third line center for the San Jose Sharks, probably. But
yes,
it's never too late to make the changes that are going to make the most important ones for you, right? And it's a lot of they don't have to be big ones, just a little one, and stick to it. I like to, in the cancer community, right? One of the analogies I like to make is with people in New Year's resolutions, particularly New Year's resolutions around like working out, I think there's an actual day. I think it's like the third Tuesday of January where like that's when forget to like I'm done working out.
it's
And
done. It's over. Yep.
it's not because people are injured, it's because they just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
You know, uh,
Exactly.
if you're a cancer patient, man, it's okay. Some days you're just not going to feel like it, but you can't just quit. You got to keep going forward, right? It's not optional. So move forward, get over it.
Yep.
And you're not injured. You just don't feel like it. I get it. But for us, it's every day. Punch today in the
Yeah.
face.
Absolutely. And Ray, one thing that you mentioned and I want to bring up is, you're donating your proceeds from your memoir, myself, and my triple myeloma, and you're donating that to the Multiple Myeloma Research Foundation. But why is that so important to you? I mean, I think I have a good idea, but I just wanted to give you, an
Yeah,
opportunity.
I just wanted to be, authentic about it. Again, I wanted to be a resource for the community. And like I said earlier, I'd been doing these things on a one-to-one basis. So, how could I do this one-to-many? But I don't deserve to profit off of it. I want to give. So, I wanted it to be from somebody in the community. I wanted to be directed to the community. I wanted it to benefit the community. And I thought, what's the best way I can do that? It's really just like the Immaculate book. The Pittsburgh book, my co-author, Tom Olenek, he was like, Ray, for all the work you've done on the book, how about if we donate the proceeds to, like, cancer research, cancer therapy? So it's like, it's a great idea. And it should be in the Pittsburgh area. So I think over the book published in December 22nd, 2020, I think Tom just gave another check to the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center. I think in total, it's the first check was, I think it's $9,064. So $5,032 was one check. The other check was $4,032. The 32 being the number of Franco Harris, the hashtag Be Like Franco. That book, those proceeds are going to cancer facilities as well. So yeah,
That's awesome.
this
Yeah, I love that. And UPMC, I've been through Pittsburgh, so I've seen UPMC all over the place. I've worked in healthcare on the revenue factor side, and I've worked with them, not directly, but as one of our clients. So it's good to see that money going to the community, going to the cancer research, and really, like you said, now, with the government in a bit of a change, we don't know what that's going to mean for research programs. But it's people like you and other folks that donate to these charities that can help that research keep going.
Yeah, if you're a Steelers fan or if you're from Pittsburgh, visit us on Facebook. The book has a Facebook account. It's called "Immaculate: How the Steelers Saved Pittsburgh." The title of the book, but you can see the checks. I'm looking at here's a post. Yeah, so it was August 16th that Tom was at the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center, $5,032. And it's just something,
Nice.
we're both proud of that. What we've been able to give back to the community. He's super proud of his community. Like I said, he's the Yinzer of the bunch.
Yeah, right.
And, he's super proud of his community. And it just feels good to give back, what little that we can. So,
Yeah. I love that, Ray. And I would be remiss if I didn't do this section with you, but I do a section on almost every podcast now that's called Dude Q&A. So where I just ask some off-the-wall questions to you to let the audience get to know you a little bit
I'm
more on a
ready.
personal level. So
I'm
if
ready.
you're ready, let's get it. Let's go. All right. First question for you is favorite Steelers moment of all time, or that was in the book, whichever you prefer.
Wow, good question. We use the Immaculate Reception as kind of like a bit of glue, that whole game between the Raiders and the Steelers. As you can't talk about the Steelers saving Pittsburgh without talking about Pittsburgh, and you can't talk about that without talking about the Steelers. That's two different audiences, right? You got your historical group and your sports fan. So you tied it together. The first 2/3 of the book through that entire game. So my favorite game would be that Immaculate Reception game, December 23rd, 1972, and that most memorable play in NFL history.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. For you, because I know you're an Indy 500 fan, what is a go-to food for you for a watch party?
And go-to food for any type of watch party for any sport is nachos.
Oh, yeah.
I
How
love
can
me
you go wrong, right?
Love a plate of nachos. I like the idea of nachos usually a little bit more than like at the end of nachos. At the end of nachos, a
Yes.
little bit of shame associated with this. Like, wow, man, I just polished off a bunch of stuff. My doctor would probably be a little bit disappointed in. But yeah, nachos. Now at a stadium, that's a watch party. I'm assuming it's somebody's house. At a
Yeah,
stadium,
yeah.
I am a chicken fingers and fries type of guy. They seem to be the safest pretty much
Yeah.
everywhere. If there's sometimes you're at a stadium where you just have to get that, like, oh, I got to get the barbecue because, this is just, we were Chicago, Kansas City, or, someplace like that. But, yeah, chicken, if the watch party is alive at the event, I like to go chicken fingers and fries.
Nice. I like, and you know what? There's some consistency with that idea too. It's probably pretty close to the same no matter where you go,
Yeah, it's
you
just
know?
hard to
So
put up, fried chicken fingers and French fries, but, the sushi
exactly.
roll, watch out for that, that might be,
Yeah, sushi. Yeah. And you know what? I don't think I've actually seen sushi at a hockey game yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
come to California, you will
Yeah,
have it.
I'm sure, right? A little bit different than Ohio, right? Us Midwesterners and our corn and beef.
Wide variety of foods with here and you go to a San Francisco 49er game up in Santa Clara, the Indian food you can smell. It's like, wow, I don't know if I've ever been to a state where you could smell Indian food. Yeah, it's but yeah, sushi and garlic fries, up
Oh,
particularly up
garlic fries. Yeah.
Northern California. You can't go to any sporting event in Northern California that there's not garlic fries associated with. I mean, you go to a sprint car race out in the middle of nowhere, there's gonna be garlic fries there. So
That's awesome. Now I'm hungry and, I know what I'm doing after this episode,
I'm
but
I'm getting hungry.
yeah. All right. Yeah, it's getting dinner time for you, right? But yeah, so for you, and I know you tend to be a little bit more positive, but when, if you are feeling down, is there a go-to song for you that you like to play or listen to when you're feeling down?
Uh, that's a great question. And ironically, today I was posting something on TikTok, but I ran through another one, and somebody was asking like, "What's your power song?" And a song that we like to do at the Chronic Padres, and one that I do is a stripped down version of Tom Petty, "Won't Back Down."
Oh yeah.
And if I need to be picked up, it's I won't back down. Now, my go-to like band for like it's just like anything, it's like, man, if I'm like really down in the blues, I need to pick it up. Is Van Halen, David Lee Roth version of Van Halen, the first.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that you know that really pumps me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And all right, if you could punch one thing in the face besides today, what's it going to be?
I'm trying to think, man. I wonder if there's a person out there, but I don't know if I want
Yeah,
to.
let's not do assault. No.
Yeah, I don't wanna get that into it, but, so, like, the impetus around, punch today in the face is if today was personified, how could you get their attention? You know? If you've ever been punched in the face, that's one way that you kinda get your, attention. But, I think, so it's a metaphor, right? And so I think, what's, you know like cluelessness, it's like, I want today to be aware that I was here, that, boy, that guy used me up today. And if I would want some other realization is that it's like, people that, and it's people, and I don't literally want to punch them in the face, but to wake
Yeah.
them, it's like,
Yes.
be be aware, right? It's just get out of your funk, get out of your, whatever, get out of, what you sleep, stop sleepwalking, I guess is what I'm trying
Yes.
to get at, right?
Yeah. Live your life, right?
And snap out of it, and be aware of your environment, and find out what means most to you, and go out and do it. So I don't know if that's really a punch, but it's like a
No, I
shake in
like
the
it.
knee.
Yeah. Because you're literally punching the funk in the face, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
break out of you, because we kind of do that, right? It's so easy to do it. You just step into the routine. I mean, you probably woke up this morning, Nathan, the same time you woke up yesterday morning,
Yep. I
and
did.
and so just we just kind of get into these routines, and they develop from when we're little kids. Anybody who's a parent knows that toddlers need to have the routine. It is really hard if you break the routine up, because then they're just fussy, messy, and all that. We kinda like our
Absolutely.
routine, but, when we get caught in a routine, sometimes we get kinda caught in that funk, kinda get caught in that sleep, and years can go by.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And then here's one I ask on every episode: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
I'm a double cappuccino, guy in the morning.
Well,
Yeah.
nice. You really like to get that motor running.
Oh, yeah, and it's a highlight of my day is just sitting down with my avocado bagel and my, double cappuccino, and it's like,
That's
it's a
awesome. I'm a black coffee guy, black with just one sweetener, but that is the highlight. I love it to get my morning going. I like to have just that one cup of coffee to sit down, think about the day, just get out of my head, and then get started.
if it's drip coffee for me, it's black as well. When did you start drinking coffee? How old were you?
So this is funny. For me, so I was a police officer for 13 years. I worked midnight shift, never drank a cup of coffee. In what was it, 2010, I got my first day shift position, and then I started drinking coffee and haven't gone back.
for me, coffee is part of my morning ritual. I wouldn't think about not having my cappuccino, but
Yeah.
I probably didn't start drinking coffee till I was well over 25.
Yeah, that was same for me. Exactly. Yeah, I did not like coffee at all. I remember when I was younger too, I didn't like beer, and as I got older, the taste of beer became more pleasing to me, you know?
Yeah. And nobody likes coffee the first time they taste it, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, same with
Nope.
beer. I think everybody
Exactly.
remembers their first beer. It's like, why does
Yeah,
dad
why
drink
why do you
this?
drink this? Exactly. Um, and I know from your cancer treatments, but have you ever had a weird side effect from any of your treatments?
The weirdest side effect would be cannabis. I've used cannabis as a sleep aid, and in California, it's recreational, legal recreational now.
Yeah, it
But
is
back
here
when
too in Ohio.
yeah,
Yeah.
back when I was first trying it, it was it was through medical card, and really, which is, if there's a segment of it in my book. The chapter is called "To Weed or Not to Weed," and medical marijuana is for those of you out there who aren't aware of it. It's really just a joke. It's just it's taxable purposes. I spoke
Yeah, exactly.
I spoke to a physician's assistant on the telephone, told him about my symptoms, and miraculously, I was a candidate for medical marijuana. And
Exactly.
it's a legal. I could legally buy it, but I had to determine my dosage and frequency and all that. There's no
Right.
guidelines for it, so it was
Yeah, exactly.
experimenting my dosage. For me, I'm not a smoker, so I went with the edible route. It's like, what did you start? 2.5 milligrams. Oh, okay. 5 milligrams. Oh, okay. I got up to 20 milligrams. And at 20 milligrams, Nathan, there was a night I was sitting in bed, and again, for me, it was a sleep aid. What I tended to do with multiple myeloma, you tend to get some night sweats. That's one of the symptoms of people before they get diagnosed. But for me, I would typically wake up after about like an hour, between 45 minutes and 90 minutes of sleep. And I would like wake up, usually be kind of warm, but then I have trouble getting back to sleep. So I thought, hey, man, if I eat some edibles, cannabis edibles, and then, when I wake up in 45 minutes or, an hour, maybe I'll just be drowsy and I'll fall back to sleep. Trying this 20 milligram cookie, I'm laying in bed and I could feel like this bubble, like moving up and down my esophagus, right? And then I said something to my wife, Lori, that should have provoked a response, but she was silent. So I started thinking, did I even say that out loud? In fact, am I even awake or am I just dreaming all this? What is this? I don't even know what's going on. So I wake up next morning and say, well, that was kind of like a weird experience. But
Yeah.
being the scientist that I am, I needed to replicate that. Sure enough, a week later, I did 20 milligrams again. And I had the exact same thing happen to me where I'm feeling this air bubble, what I think is an air bubble going up and down. I'm like, did I say this out loud, doing this? So then I recognize that 20 milligrams is too much for me. Maybe I
Yeah.
should, settle down.
Back it down a little bit.
Yeah. Then, turn it down at 5 milligram level. So yeah.
And it's so funny because I spent a lot of my years here in Ohio as a police officer arresting people for marijuana, which, at this point I think is absolutely ridiculous. And let me explain why is, I never had to fight anybody that was high on marijuana, but I had to fight a lot of drunks, And so I always say it was of the two, I'd rather you be on the marijuana, but I look at it now and we're seeing all these uses for medical treatments, right? Like helping you sleep. I had a friend of mine that was in Colorado and had cancer and it helped him with the nausea, and stuff like that. So it's like, people that have seizures can use it to help reduce the amount of seizures. So, I sit there and I look at it, of course, the government, they always, the last to know, last to go, right? But it's like, when are you going to get off your hands and at least make it medically available throughout the entire country,
And it's
because there
close.
are benefits.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I actually became, one of you mentioned, I was a, frequent pundit about, from national media on some things. One was, retail marijuana. For a while there, geez, I can't remember the exact year, but it's probably around 2018 or something like that. I'd written a blog post at a company that I was with. It was about retailing marijuana and having a retail experience. People just came to me. It's like, oh, this guy's the so-called expert. So I had a lot of that. But there's so I used to know an awful lot about legalization of marijuana. There's not that many states where there's nothing legal. I think there's only
Yeah,
four.
I think at least a lot have the medical cards
Yeah.
now.
They have the medical cards. For me, I was just thinking about this today. I haven't had an edible in months. I'm kind of inconsistent with it. And I just thought about it
Yeah,
because
just when you need it.
I've been having trouble sleeping lately, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I will go back to those or not. But yeah, it's we've talked about this, me and my friends, many times. As a lot of drunks getting fights, a lot of stoners are just eating nacho cheese Doritos.
Exactly,
Taco
or going
Bell.
through the Taco Bell line. Yep, exactly. That's what I always said. I never had to fight it with anybody that was high on marijuana, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Other substances, yes, but no, and that's why,
yeah,
and I see the benefits of it now medically, so I hope we're getting closer to that, at least from a medical standpoint, to where we can help people like yourself, people that have other, diseases, Parkinson's. I've seen what it's done for people that have Parkinson's, it can slow down their tremors and stuff like that, and it's just amazing, and I hope the government at some point, realizes that it's not as bad. If anything, I think alcohol is worse. Obviously now I'm talking edible or eating it versus smoking it. Now smoking, it's a whole different area, right? Now you're putting it in your lungs. But anyway, yeah, I just hope we get there. But Ray, that was awesome. Those were,
I really don't know how my father feels about it. And my father's read the book, but
yeah,
my dad would not have been, like 30, 40 years ago. Wait a second, you're, taking marijuana pills, gummies. But so we've actually never talked about it. I'm assuming he's okay with the fact.
yeah. If he wasn't, he probably would have let you know, right, Ray?
I disapprove
But
of that stuff. But yeah,
yes,
the old retired Army colonel. I don't know if
yep. That's fine. But that was it. That was Dude Q&A. So you nailed it. You crushed it. It was pretty easy, hopefully. But but yeah, Ray, and I've kept you pretty long here, and I hope you don't mind, but this has been a heck of a conversation. And, what I want to know is, is there anything that you want to share with the audience before we depart? Any last words of wisdom or, and obviously I want you to plug your website and your books as well.
I don't know if I don't know in the time that we spent, Nathan, that there's, if I haven't said everything, but yeah,
Right.
one thing I'm completely sincere about this, no matter what you want to talk about out there, if you want to talk to me about anything, I'd be happy to chat you up. You can hit me up anywhere, social media. My handle is Ray Hartjen. My Gmail address is rayhartjen@gmail.com. And I would be happy to talk to you about anything, particularly if you are a multiple myeloma patient, or if you're a caregiver of anybody going through a serious illness, or just an ally. I would be happy to hear your story, listen to your story, and if there's any way that I can help, I want to be that guy that helped. There's a lot of people have helped me through my journey and my fight, and we owe it to each other. We all get something, Nathan. We all get something. It's just a matter of what, but like I've said, a couple of times so far during this episode, we are stronger than we know, but together we are stronger even still, right? And if
Absolutely.
there's anything that I can ever do for any of you, if you want to talk Indy 500, I'm your dude. If you want to talk how the Steelers say Pittsburgh, I'm your dude. If you want to talk B2B sales and marketing, I'm your dude. But particularly if you want to talk about cancer patient advocacy, caregivers, and allies, I'm your dude there as well. Just a dude. I'm there for you.
Yeah, just he's there, a normal person, with an extraordinary story, which is what we go with, every episode on this podcast. But you're definitely living that, Ray. And just for the listeners out there, it's rayhartjen.com, right? That's your website. And
Website's
that Yep, that will be on the screen. It's not now, but it'll be on the screen when we produce this. But also for our listeners, justadudepodcast.com is also going to have Ray's information. He'll have a guest spot there. You'll see his photo, all his websites and social media handles that I can grab. I'm going to throw them on there. So you could go there to either place and, really get connected with Ray. And, hopefully if you need to connect with him, please do know that you're not alone. And, we can all do this together as a community.
Yeah. You got a team. I'm on your team, man. Nathan's on your team too.
Absolutely.
So reach out.
Well, you heard it. Go hit up rayhartjen.com, grab his books, and maybe catch a gig. Ray, you're a dude worth knowing, man. I really appreciate you joining us today. All right, listeners, that's it for this episode of Just a Dude Podcast. If you liked it, smash that subscribe button, leave a review, tell your dog about it, whatever works. We'll catch you next time, but until then, stay chill, stay real, and keep being just a dude or a dudette.